Hello and welcome to Relatable Code. In this video, we're going to talk about maps in Kotlin. So let's get started. So what are maps and why do we need them? Well, our library application is growing. So now we have multiple customers and each customer can actually borrow more than one book in our library. So one very easy way to keep track of every single book that every customer in our library has borrowed is by using maps in Kotlin, and I'll show you how. For example, we can define a map like this. We can write val borrowed books equals to map of, and this is where you have to pay attention. Okay? A map is basically a special type of class in Kotlin which expects a key value pair as its value. Okay, and what I mean by that is you basically need a key so that you can search for the specific type of data that you need, and the value itself. In our case, it will be a list of borrowed books, for example. Okay, so here I have to pass two parameters to my map. Okay, the first parameter, our key, will be a string like this, and the second parameter will be a list of strings. Okay, that's basically how you instantiate a map in Kotlin. Now let's give it one value. You can write, for example, Alice to list of string, just like that. You can have a book called 1984 and a book, for example, called The Hobbit. Okay, and that's how you define a map in Kotlin. Now, what if I want to try to access the books that this customer Alice has? Okay, I can write print line borrowed books Alice, just like that. Okay, if I run my main function now, as you can see, I have the output 1984 and The Hobbit. Okay, so what happened here? I defined this map of mine with a key being the customer's name and the value being the borrowed books that this customer has from my library. Okay, that's basically how the map works. You just need a key so that you can find the value easily whenever you want, just like we did here, and the value for that key. In our case, we want it to be a list of books, which happen to be strings for simplicity reasons. Okay, you can define more than one value inside a map. You can define, for example, borrowed books for another customer. Let's say this one is Bob, and let's say he has, we don't need to define a string here, a book called Harry Potter and another book called The Hobbit 2. Okay, that's what you can do. You just need to separate them with a comma. And now I can also access the books of Bob. Just like that, I can run my main function again. And here, as you can see, I have Harry Potter and The Hobbit 2. Okay? Now, this is great, but you might ask me, why do I need a map to do this? Why don't I just define a list of books variable for my user class? Okay, I'm pretty sure I have a user class. I think I commented everything out here. Let's just create one like this. For example, I can write class user, I can write val name string, for example, like that, and I think this needs to be a var because we can change it later, and we can just define our borrowed books like this. Well, why don't we do that? Well, because the map in Kotlin is very fast when you want to retrieve a certain value for a certain key, like Bob or Alice in our case. It's really fast, and it's a lot faster than trying to find these values inside a list for a given user. Okay, that's the main purpose behind using maps. You have lots of other advantages as well, such as the flexibility, such as having unique keys for your values, in addition to many other benefits. Okay, now this is also great, but you have a limitation here. For example, if I want to try to add a new entry to my map, for example, like this, I get an error. Why do I get an error? Because now set method providing array access, which means that this is an immutable map. Okay, remember when we were talking about lists, you had normal lists and you had mutable lists. Well, the same thing goes for maps as well. Okay, you can define a mutable map like this. Val mutable borrowed box equals to mutable map of. We can skip this. We can write Carla. We can write to list of. Let's just call this book 1 and book 2. You can access a mutable list the same way as you do, or sorry, a mutable map, the same way as you can access a normal map, like this. Okay, these are Carla's books. Okay, and the added value here is that you can add more values to this map after instantiating it. Okay, you can do it like this. You can write Bob equals to, we need a list. We can define book 3 and book 4. Now, if I try to look up Bob's borrowed books, I can run my function. And as you can see, I have Bob's borrowed books. Okay. Using this, I was able to add a value to my mutable map. Okay. But there's one disadvantage with using this technique, and I'm going to show you. For example, if I want to try to add some more books to Carla's already existing books, this is where I have a problem. Let's print out Carla's books now. As you can see, Carla's old books were overwritten with these books. Okay, because when you write this, you're basically saying, I want to access Carla's books, and I want them to now be equal to list of book 3 and book 4. Okay, this is where you should use another notation when adding some new books to already existing values in your map. You can write dot add, which doesn't exist. I think because you need to explicitly define that this is a mutable map of string to mutable list of strings as well. Carla to mutable list of book 1 and book 2 so that you can now use the add operator. Like this, you need a mutable list here. And now this may be null, so you have to use the question mark or the nullable operator in Kotlin so that you can now add book 5. Okay, let's run our function again. And as you can see, now I have book 3, book 4, and book 5. Okay. This method is very powerful, but it also has a setback. Okay. Let's suppose we don't have a Carla in our map, and we only have Bob, and we try to add this book 5 to Carla's books. If I try to run my function, I get null, okay? Because I didn't have Carla inside this map, which means that my add operator didn't work because this was basically null, okay? So instead of using this method, which may produce a problem like that, you can use a safer way to add items to a map, and that's through mutable borrowed box dot get or put. Here you pass your key, you pass a default value. In our case, we want it to just be an empty list like that. And at the end, you add book 5 as you want. Okay. Let's comment out the previous line of code and run our function again. As you can see, now I have a list of book 5. Okay. So what this basically did was it went into my mutable borrowed books. It called get or put for my key Carla. It didn't find this key inside my map. So it created a new entry inside my map with this key and this initial value if you want, an empty list, and it added a book to that empty list, okay, which is why it wasn't empty when it was written to the output. This is the safer way of adding values to a map in Kotlin, okay? Note that with maps, you aren't restricted to using strings for your keys. Okay, you can have anything you want be the key for any value inside this map. It may be a string which is the name of your user. It may be the whole user. Okay, you can write this like that, and you can now replace Bob with user like this. Okay. Of course, you will have to pass some parameters to this user, such as the name and any other piece of data you want. But the main idea is that you can use just basically anything for the key and the value of any map. Okay? If you find my type of content to be relatable, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next video.